Senator.
I'm so grateful, man. You have no idea how grateful I am for you and for you just having a platform that's connecting with so many people around these issues. Just thank you, man.
Well, I thank you for coming on and helping support the channel. And hopefully this will lead to more and more people leaning and coming aboard the issues. But I got to start. I got to give you with a tough one. All right.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the tough question. But do you know? Can you name the senator who holds the record, the U.S. record for the longest filibuster in the Senate?
I I am the guy that has the longest speech in the Senate history, but I know my wife would probably joke, yeah, that's because you're the longest winded guy. But I was so happy to be able to break Strom Thurmond's record. He's a guy that had the record that was filibustering civil rights of all things. So he did that in 1954 against the Civil Rights Act, and so it was really made me proud to be able to do it.
It is definitely, there's a historical element to what you did. Thank you for doing that. But I do have to ask, you did 25 hours and you can't pee during those 25 hours. Is that right? You could not take a bathroom break.
You cannot go to the bathroom. You cannot leave the floor. So I didn't eat. I fasted for the 3 days before that, and then I didn't drink any liquids for 24 hours before, just so I could do it.
I still cannot believe you did. I'm probably going to have to pee before this interview's over. So I am so impressed, and we're about the same age. So that's amazing. And I just, in my research with you, I found we have another connection, Senator. Remember Kevin Bacon's 9? We have 1 degree of separation. You were a football. I know you were like an all-state football player in New Jersey, and you were full scholarship to Stanford. Is that right? You played tight end.
Yeah, I played tight end at Stanford. Yes,
And while you were on that team, do you recall the strong safety, a guy named Brad Humphreys?
of course I do. Of
Okay.
course I
Well,
do.
I played football with Brad Humphreys. When I was a junior, he was a senior at Saratoga High. So we both played football with a mutual team member. I think that's a great connection.
And he's a really decent guy. Really good man. Really
Yeah.
good man.
I
Yes.
have not had a lot of contact with him, but I thought that was neat. And so that means you were in my neck of the woods for those 4 years. We were kind of coexisting in the same area, and we probably may know some of this. We may have been in the same bar at the same time.
I
Who
was about to
knows?
say, yeah, I could name some of the bars in that area we used to hang out in, or maybe the same movie theater, because back then I was a movie addict, and would drag my girlfriend always to see that,
Oh, well,
see the film.
I'm sure we ran across each other. Jumping into it, I want to give you an opportunity first before we jump into why you're really here and why you're relevant to my channel. I want to give you the opportunity to just talk about the issue of the day, and I think that's the agreement, the Iran agreement, and see if you have any comment on that, and then go from there.
Yeah, I'm really disturbed. I'm very frustrated that we have a president that has capitulated in the way that he has. He dragged us into a war we should not have been in at all, unconstitutionally. Didn't come to Congress. We paid $7 billion or more of our taxpayer dollars. We've all been paying higher prices at the pump, at the grocery store as a result of this war. More than that, we've lost 14 soldiers, hundreds of more injured. And the deal he negotiated has given Iran billions and billions of dollars. It lifted sanctions on them, gave them a reconstruction fund access of over $300 billion, lifted other sanctions on them. And we get nothing concrete of it. This president hasn't achieved anything but opening the Strait of Hormuz. Even that's not fully open yet, but it was open before the war started. So he said at the beginning of the war that he wanted complete and total unconditional surrender. But what seems to me is this man has dragged us all through this, and he's been the one that surrendered unconditionally.
And I appreciate your take on that. I will just give my brief response that I think it will be a totally different scenario if he ever obtains the enriched uranium. I would look at that situation completely different than if we don't. Because I honestly, if we get the uranium, I think I'll give the man credit. I'll give the president credit for maybe making the world safer. But if we don't get the uranium, my question is, what were we doing? So I appreciate your take on that. And then let's move into to why you're here. And it's, I know that you've gone through something in your life that, not everybody goes through, and it's something that's really hard to relate to unless you've been there. And of course I'm talking about your father, and the diagnosis. How old were you and where were you when you first learned of your father's diagnosis?
My father first started complaining about symptoms that we wouldn't later find out are Parkinson's when I was still in school. I was getting my law degree, and his complaints got bigger and bigger. And then we would find out soon in the 90s that it was Parkinson's, and it's just a relentless thief that steals from your mobility, and eventually towards the end began to steal from his mind, and he had Parkinson's related dementia. But it was a decades long pathway until he would finally pass away 6 days before I was elected to this office.
And I, it's funny you said that, because that to me is, you gave me goosebumps when you said it, because that stood out to me. That it's, we love to, I don't really care about impressing anybody in the world except my parents. And here you are with this amazing career, and you're ascending, but he knew inside that you were running. He knew that you were just about there. And I think it's a tragedy that he didn't, whether he was aware or not, that he wasn't, alive to see you get elected, because, man, that is, what an amazing accomplishment for a father to look down and say, my son ascended to be a senator. I mean, and you went through, you were a council member, you were mayor, and then you jumped to senator. So you didn't, just pull a Hillary Clinton and just, walk into the Senate. You paid your dues getting there. And I'm so glad your dad at least had an opportunity to see that. And I know how proud he would have been if you, especially if he was just saw you get elected. But I know he's incredibly proud of you anyway. I mean, just your accomplishments to get through Stanford the way you did, and to play football. I mean, that's enough for most people. So,
well, my dad had a way of always trying to keep my feet on the ground. He said to me when my father was not impressed with fancy degrees. I went to Stanford, Oxford, Yale. I'm graduating from Yale. And he's like, boy, you got more degrees in the month of July, but you ain't hot. Life ain't the degrees you get, it's the service you give. And he loved keeping my feet on the ground, because by the time I was 16, 17 years old, I was All-American football player of the year for my state. And he just would always do things to ground his son. And one of my favorite memories of him, and I wrote about this in my book, I have a whole chapter about vulnerability. And, we put up these facades that, especially men, we want to seem so hard and so tough. But often the way to create community and connection is, it's actually Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think that too many of us don't realize sometimes strength is reaching out, is recognizing that you need help. Well, I'm in a movie theater with my father. They were living in Atlanta at the time, and my mom's there too. And she leans over and says something to me that again, it just turned my world upside down. She leaned over and said to me, you need to take your father to the bathroom. And, here's the guy that used to take me as a kid to the bathroom. And I realized that his Parkinson's and his dementia were at a point now where my mom knew he couldn't do it himself. And so again, I'm a doting son. I stand up right away. Yes, Mom. And I take my dad's trembling hand, help him out of his seat. And then now he's shuffling. But I look at him, his eyes seem like distant. And I knew he wasn't hearing me, but I'm just talking to him. Hey, Dad. And we're just shuffling along. And we get into the bathroom, and I bring him over the urinal, and I step back, and I think, okay, he's going to go to the bathroom, then we'll get back in the theater. But I realized his hands were trembling so much, he couldn't undo his belt. And suddenly it dawned on me what I have to do here. And so I lean over, and suddenly, as I'm trying to struggle with his belt, now my ego jumps in, and I suddenly realize, wait a minute, I'm in a public bathroom, leaning over, unbuckling another guy's. And I literally said this to myself, dear God, I hope nobody walks in. And almost as if God heard my prayer immediately, someone walked in. And I'll never forget this moment. Like, this guy, I'm bending over trying to get my dad's belt undone, and the guy walks right, I can see his feet through my peripheral vision. He walks right past me, and then he stops, and the feet turn around, And I'm like, oh my God, what is about to happen? And all of a sudden I hear him blurt out, Cory Booker. Oh my gosh. I'm a big fan of yours, man. I was mayor of the city and of Newark, and he must have seen me, and he just is so happy to see me. And then I look up at my father, and no longer distant. He's there, smiling with such smug satisfaction that yet again he took his big hoity-toity mayoral son and brought him back down to earth. The joy in his face that he embarrassed me yet again, mortified me in this bathroom. And I tell people that story a lot because when you're a caregiver, there's no glamour in that. You're doing a lot of tough jobs. My mom, I watched her health deteriorate. I watched her twist her knee really badly trying to lift my dad out of a bathtub. My dad once was in a state where he didn't know where he was. He thought my mom was a stranger and literally threw my mom to the ground as he tried to run out of the own house. I saw the toll it took on my mom physically, emotionally. I saw the toll it took on our family financially. But I realized by sharing stories with friends and church and others that we weren't alone. In fact, in America, it's about 65 million people right now are going through the same thing. A special needs child, a parents with Alzheimer's. This is not, shouldn't be isolating, but it so often is. We're not alone in this. And we as a society, especially because caregivers, if they weren't stepping up, it would cost our society over $1 trillion, $1 trillion to provide health care for folks that are in this situation. So the beauty of my father, and is one of his last gifts to me, remember, he dies 6 days before I become a United States Senator. The beauty that he gifted me before I went into the United States Senate is he sent me here with this sense of urgency to do something about this crisis in our country that so many millions of people are struggling.
Yeah, and Cory, I mean, you hit me right with your story, and that's because anybody who's lived this kind of journey has experienced that, and what you just described. I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but I had a very similar experience in a restroom in a hospital, but it didn't involve urine, and it was one of the most. I mean, I can't the amount of stress that I was under in that moment of. I mean, we were in the middle of the bathroom and it was a busy bathroom and man, it was everywhere. And, I was in a hospital and thank God nurses came in and but that's the way you feel is you can't describe that unless you've been there. And by the way, just real quick, your dad did an amazing job keeping you grounded. Not only, as an athlete, we see all too often what happens to athletes. They have giant egos, they're entitled, and it takes them to bad places in life. And so you were very lucky to have what obviously a great man for a father. And my congratulations to him on keeping you grounded. And that allows you to do what you're doing right now. And you hit on your mother, which is another, topic. You didn't just watch your father, someone you respected, a great man who still controlled you and still, held his fatherly, influence on his son. Sons always want to please their father. It doesn't matter if they're sick. And, he held that all the way through. And I'm so glad to hear that. And I feel the same way. But you didn't just have to watch your dad go through this, you had to watch your mom live through it. And like you said, 65 million unpaid, unplanned caregivers. Nobody plans, in 15 years, you know what? I'm going to be a caregiver to my dad and I'm going to, take care of him. Nobody plans it. It's something that's thrown at you. And your mom had an opportunity to step up or not step up. And obviously, she threw her life into it and you watched how it affected both of you. And, again, I have a saying, if you haven't been there, you don't know. And I'm, solidarity bump because Senator, what it's like and you've lived there. And I want to ask you, I know that you've introduced a number of bills, caregiver-centric bills looking to help caregivers. I wanted to ask you, what was in those and where do they stand today?
Yeah, I'm reading a lot of the comments coming up. Andy Kim is my co-senator who's dealing with a father who's going through having some trouble with mental health as well. I'm actually happy that he too is sharing this publicly and sharing his struggles. So it's the In-Home Caregivers Act, which would create resources to support our caregivers. I know my mom had to go through a long journey of just even knowing what support there was out there and not having a lot of the support that I know so many caregivers, and I'm seeing a lot of the people that are commenting below who were caregivers, who are caregivers. We should be, as a society, investing in making sure they're supported. And there's some common sense, practical things that we could be doing to support them emotionally, support them with resources, support them with education and training and awareness. And so this is the basics. I think we need to do a lot more, but this is just the very basics. I do know the financial strain it takes, and I know there's a lot of work in America we don't value. Work in the home we don't value, and caregiving we don't value. I think in the same way that there's an earned income tax credit for folks, I think there should be a tax credit for people that are putting in these hours, that when they're giving up their jobs or giving up hours of work and taking care of somebody. There should be some support where you can get more of a tax deduction. So I'm going to be pushing a lot of legislation around this, but I'm grateful for you that you're giving me a chance to talk about this most recent legislation to really focus on supporting those caregivers.
Yeah, I mean, we have an aging population. We are getting older. The number of people that are going to require in-home care or care somewhere is just going to grow. And like you said, it's an enormous.
It's mushrooming, especially that we're seeing Alzheimer's rates go up and up and up. And I thank you for saying that, because this problem is not getting better. It's going to get more challenging. And we say 65 million Americans now. 10, 15 years, it could be up to 75 to 100 million. So yes, there's an urgency for us to step up now.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement, and I wish you the best of luck with that, Senator. I don't know how much time you have. I don't know if you've got extra with your schedule.
Yeah, I was late coming on, so let's go a little longer.
Oh, that's perfect. I so much appreciate that. Can you talk about your mother is still alive, right? And so you're still close to her. How is she doing now, and how did she recover from that? From that process.
My mom lives in Nevada with her two siblings, my uncle and my aunt. I saw her yesterday. I was out speaking to the Teamsters, and my mom is phenomenal. She really is. I'm so happy I have an 85-year-old mother who is living in a senior care facility. It has a memory care wing that does really great work. But she this Father's Day is going to be tough. Me and her felt like we were both the biggest blessings in our lives. She had this great husband for 50 years, and I had a great dad. So I just stay close to my mom, stay tight with her. But she's become more of an activist in that facility. She's working on their foundation. She helps raise money for people who get into whose retirement savings don't go as far as they want to. So my mom is a leader. I love what James Baldwin says. My mom has a funny saying. She says, behind every successful child is an astonished parent. But I say James Baldwin has this great quote where he says, children are never good at listening to their elders, but they never fail to imitate them. And so I was very blessed to have two people, my mom and my dad, who showed me what greatness is. Not a title, not a position, but it's the daily acts of grace and kindness you can share with others. And my mom is living those values right now in the community in which she lives.
Thank you, Senator. That's great, and I appreciate that. I spoke to I think your press secretary, Susie, and she. I know you have one of your campaign themes is positivity, especially keeping a positive attitude in difficult times. So I want to give you an opportunity. Just in the midst of caregiving, we have the same kind of situation. For example, if I have a terrible situation in the bathroom with my dad at 2:00 in the morning, you can run into some things that you've described, and you can just imagine. And it's really difficult. You're exhausted. You're at your wit's end. It's one of the hardest things that you do in life is some of these tasks that you're asked to do, and they are literally impossible tasks. They're not possible to do it right and get through it and do it perfectly. And I look at that like there's two ways to look at that as a caregiver. I can just I can get in my own gloom and self misery and talk about how terrible it is and my God, and or I can look at it like, you know what, that is an impossible ask, and yet here I am doing it. So there's always two ways to look at something. I guess glass half empty, half full. How do you keep a positive attitude, and how have you kept a positive outlook when times are a little darker?
Well, I'm reading your comments, and I'm really moved by how many people are going through this experience, went through this experience, or nurses. Um, the last curveball that was thrown to me was my brother had a stroke about 5 years ago, and I felt so terrified. This is my brother. We're 2 years apart, and in those early days in the hospital, we didn't know if we'd be able to talk again. And we were doing shifts taking care of him. And I remember, again, doing those humble tasks of taking him to the bathroom, showering and trying to clean him. And I tell people this, it's weird. And I know other people here can relate to it. But when you love somebody, those tasks don't become so scary or insurmountable, or, love, when it's at the center, when you love someone, you can do things that you might have once believed were things beyond your capabilities. And that's why I love people in those professions that do that kind of stuff. I have seen firefighters and police officers do the most irrational things, run into buildings that other people are running out of. I have seen nurses and caregivers in people's lowest, worst of moments. They show unrelenting kindness and grace to each other. That's what this country's about. And I see some of the politics. Most of your community is very positive, but I'm watching some of it. Let me tell you, I'm in the United States Senate, and we tend to vilify people just because they don't vote like us. But I will never forget, Bill Bradley told me to get to know people on the other side of the aisle as human beings. Don't reduce them to a vote they took that you disagreed with. Don't reduce them to D or R by their name. He says, if you're going to work and be successful in the Senate, get to know people. And I remember one guy, I couldn't get to meet with him. I went down and did what Bill Bradley said, try to meet with everybody. I had this meeting with John McCain I wrote about in my book that was one of the most unbelievable meetings. But this guy named Jim Inhofe, God rest his soul, he's a right-wing Republican from Oklahoma, and my side of the aisle, he's a guy that brought a snowball to the Senate floor to say there was no climate change. We people on our side of the aisle would ridicule him, but he was a powerful senator, chairman of a committee. Couldn't get him to meet with me, so I decided, you know what? I hear he has a Bible study in his office. I'm a Christian. I grew up in church. My faith is very important to me, but his brand of evangelical Christianity is different than what I grew up with. But I said, it's the Bible. Maybe I can go pray with him. So I go into his office, and immediately my implicit biases are challenged, because I did not expect this elder, right-wing white man to have a picture of him in an affectionate embrace with a little black girl on his mantle. And I called my senators back then, especially the older ones, by their titles. The tradition is to call each other by their first names, but I was like, I'm not going to call people my father's age by their first name. So I look at him and I go, Mr. Chairman, who dat? As I pointed to the picture. And he laughed, and he told me the most beautiful story of his family adopting this little girl out of a really, really tough environment. And it meant something to me. I would have never known if I hadn't gone. Months later, I'm on the Senate floor. There's a big education bill going through, and I have an amendment that I want to put on the bill that helps homeless and foster kids. And I'm frustrated because Lamar Alexander, who's managing the bill, says no amendments. It's a perfectly balanced bill. If one party or somebody puts a bill on, it's gonna make people vote against the bill. So he was being very stern. He's guarding the bill on the floor. And I'm sitting back sulking because I really want to do something to help these populations. And then I see Inhofe walk into the well of the Senate. I walk up to him with a lot of courage. I say, sir, I know how much you care about disadvantaged kids. I have this amendment. I explain it to him. And he gives me the Senate version of no, which is, I'll think about it and talk to my staff. So I go back and sit in my seat. But by the time I look up, it's like his GPS is off. He's walking straight in the Democratic side, walks up to me and he goes, you know what, Cory? I'm in. And he tries to start turning around. I go, stop. What do you mean you're in? He goes, I'll co-sponsor your amendment. I couldn't believe it. Jim Inhofe, Republican chairman. And then I look up and I see Chuck Grassley. And I'm like, what the heck? I walk over to the Republican side. I make my case to Chuck Grassley. And he looks at me And of course, I said to him, Senator Grassley, Jim Inhofe and I have a bill, have an amendment. Chuck Grassley got on because he saw Inhofe on. Before you know it, I walked down to Lamar Alexander to show him the co-sponsors I have, all these Republicans, and he laughs and he goes, Cory, I'll let it on the bill. It's now the law of the land. And so I just tell you, this country is not where it is because we doubled down on our differences. This nation is where it is because we opened up empathy and compassion. And even if there's tons of differences, we still found lines of experience that connected us. And sometimes those threads can be weaved into something really positive. You're creating a forum on here that people from all different backgrounds, I'm seeing it. I'm looking all the, you got people, Democrats and Republicans on this thing, who are all unified by the urgency of this nation doing more for our caregivers. And maybe within that is the combustible material to light a fire that can actually make some change. And so I'm grateful to you, and you're really one of these guys that calls it like it is. And I just hope we can work together to create a movement for caregivers, because the number is 65 now, but it's going to go so far up. More people are going to have the experiences like I had with my mother, like I had with my brother, like you've had, and like so many of the people I see on your platform right now.
Senator, I think that is an absolutely really important story. That was your personality that made something happen that would not have happened had you not decided to cross the line. And I think that, disease does not discriminate, doesn't care if you're Republican, Democrat, doesn't care about your religion, your orientation, your race, your color, your creed, your socioeconomic status. It doesn't care. And it is a great issue to bridge and bring people together. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'd love to have you on again, maybe after the election, and talk about the division, because that's my issue is division, and ways we can break through and come together as a nation again. And I don't want to dwell on it right now, but I would like to ask you a favor. I've never interviewed a United States Senator before, and I am sitting here in my house, and my father is in the other room, and I would be grateful if I could go and introduce you to my father.
Oh my
and
God,
let
what an
him
honor.
see that I'm talking with a United States Senator, and he may not get it, but I'd love the opportunity. So I thank you so much.
What's your father's last name?
Salinger, Ed Salinger.
Mr. Salinger, just like you, Dan. Okay.
Here he is. Oh, we have a pig too. Hi, pig.
I
Hey,
love
Dad.
the pig.
Pop, let me put this down. I want to introduce you to somebody, Dad.
Mr. Salinger, my name is Cory Booker.
Right there. Can you see him?
I see myself.
And what about right here?
That looks like you.
I'm next to you, but this is a United States Senator, Pop. That's the United States Senator from New Jersey. He's in Washington, D.C.
Who is he?
Cory Booker. He's a United States Senator, Dad. And thanks to you, I'm talking to a United States Senator.
Oh, okay.
Hey, what an honor, sir, to see you. Thank you very much for raising such a great son.
Dad, he's talking to you. There's a senator. Cory, I'm going to turn that's Cory. Senator, I'm going to turn the volume up. Dad,
Yeah.
that's Senator Cory Booker, United States Senator.
Salinger, thank you very much for raising such a great son. Thank you for raising such a great son, and happy Father's Day to you, sir. Happy Father's Day.
Cory, Senator Booker just wished you a happy Father's Day, Pop.
Oh, that was nice. Why did you just get in there and just had a new baby?
Pop, I'm speaking with the United States Senator because of you, Dad.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
All right. Well, I want to thank you too, Pop.
Oh, well, thank you too for letting me talk to you.
He just thanked me for letting him talk to you, Senator. So I want to thank you so much for that, and I'll have that memory with my dad forever. So
thank you. Thank you so much. Listen, man, you really are a righteous man, and I'm just grateful. And I will come back on. Please have me back.
I'd love to, Senator. Good luck, and thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. Take care now. Bye-bye.